Hello everyone, my name is Akshay Kumar Dattatreya Bhagat and today is 8th of March 2022 and it's my original video. So our today's topic is exception handling in Java. So actually what is meant by exception handling? Exception handling means it is a mechanism in which we are handling the unwanted runtime exceptions or runtime error which arises or which can lead to terminate our or which creates an abnormal condition in during the execution of our program. So this is called as an exception handling. So what is meant by exception? Exception is actually means exception means it is an abnormal condition due to which our code or block of statement or program gets terminated, or an abnormal condition arises due to which we are getting terminated, our program gets terminated. So that is called as exception. So for that sake, in Java we are having an concept of exception handling. So there are different ways to handle the like this when such a problem creates. So there are different ways to achieve the exception. So actually during the runtime what happens is, suppose we are the programmer creates a program. So suppose if there is any condition in which the exception is arises, at that time what the JVM does is that line of code or that block of code that actually in the JVM that creates an object of that exception, and that object throws an exception. So like this it happens in during the execution when we are facing such a problem. So for that sake, in Java there are different ways so that our program not get terminated if we are having exception. So there are different types of exception handling. So actually, the main there are three parts, uh, in which uh, the exception can be categorized. There is suppose we are having errors. Then at that time we are having different exceptions for handle. So in exception handling, mm, actually, there are two ways how we are handling the exceptions. That is, first one is by using try and catch, and the second one is by using throws, by using throw and throws. So, like this way, we will see in detail how we are actually handling the exception. So, suppose if we will take one example. Suppose first of all we will see one example. Suppose we are having two variables, that is integer variables, and suppose we are performing an arithmetic operation of division, and suppose we are dividing it by 0, dividing any number by 0. At that time actually what our answer is, our answer should come infinite. But in Java the during the execution, the a compiler doesn't know the infinite value. It doesn't come. So at that time, it throws an just exception. It shows an exception error. So at that time, we like this situation. Suppose we are having an array. Suppose and take an example of array. And suppose we are means we are at that time, suppose any condition occurs and we are getting an error, then at that time in arrays we are getting an array out of bound exception. So these are various types of exceptions. Suppose then the another one is a null pointer exception. Then the another, there are lot of exceptions like this. So we are how we are handling this exception by using try and catch. Just in a try block we are suppose we are creating an error. So during the programmer, when programmer does the program, at that time the programmer knows that when this situation, like this situation, will arise. At that risky code, the programmer just gives that risky code in the try block, and for that sake we are creating an catch block. In the catch block we are just giving whatever we have to catch. Means if problem arises in try block, then the object of that problem, then the object of that particular line, or that particular execution, or that statement, that object has been created, and the JVM just creates an object of that code line, and it checks whether we have means given the catch part of the project, or whether we have resolved that exception or not. Then the JVM directly checks for that. If it is given, then it executes the further execution. If the catch block has been not given, or we have not catched that exception, at that time it just throws, or it just shows to the compiler that we are having an exception. We are having an exception like this. Suppose we are having this scenario at that time, like this, in by using try and catch, we are actually handling the exception like this. Suppose we are having in this by this try and catch, we can use in different ways. Like we can use in a nested try and catch also. Means suppose we are having multiple risky codes, at that time we are using nested. Then again we are having multiple catch blocks, we can use one try block and multiple catch blocks. So like this also, we can do or handle the exceptions. So there are many way, or n number of ways, how we can handle the exceptions. So like this, we are having one finally keyword also. So what this finally keyword does that means, when we are handling the exception, this finally keyword is used. Suppose we are having an exception in between that code, but we have to execute the further part of program, or suppose one block of statement we have to execute that at last, whether before that problem get terminated, it should not happen like this. So at that time we are using an finally keyword. So by using this finally keyword with try block, with a try block at that time, the finally when that means before finally block, then if some exception arises, then also this finally block will execute. So this is the function of the finally block. Then again, our next one is an throws. So what actually throws does? Suppose take an example. If we are having five methods, then suppose in main, suppose one is having main method. From main method, if we are calling the different methods and all are related to each other, then suppose we have one block of statement in the child class at that time, and suppose child class has been called to their parent classes. Then suppose we are having a risky code in the child class, in the child method, if we are having a risky code, at that time just we can give that the um, throws 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 exception. Means suppose take an example that suppose that method will actually performing some task, and that method knows, suppose it will tell that I may have exception or may not have exception, but I am telling you that you means check for that. Then it is his parent class to whether it if it means you handles the exception or not. Suppose none of the above method will handle handle that exception, at that time it again shows the exception. By using the throws method, we actually can't handle the exception, but actually we can tell to another method or another part of the program to handle that exception. This can use by the throws. This can be used by the throws keyword. So like this way, we can handle the exceptions in the Java. So this is all about exception handling in Java. Thank you.